Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Conversations. I'm your host, Pete Lutze, and with me today we have Alexey Dorfiev, who is a student at Boise State and originally from Russia. We're going to talk a little bit about what it's like, the sort of cultural transition being here in Boise as compared to growing up in Russia. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you ended up here in Boise.
I grew up in northwestern Russia, about 1,000 miles from the North Pole, and usually when I come here, people start asking me about the white bears and like how wild it is there. And to be honest, it is pretty wild. Sometimes, like in small towns not far away from the city, the white bears do like walk around the streets. But I moved to St. Petersburg for my freshman year to go to university, and then I applied for a program funded by the U.S. State Department to come to the United States, and this is how I ended up at the College of Southern Idaho in Twin Falls, Idaho. And the purpose of that program was to foster democratic development and the development of civil society back in Russia. But after 1 year, when I came back, I realized that things started changing quickly back home in terms of like where the country was going. And I realized that at that point I couldn't have much influence on what was happening. So I decided to come back to study here.
So you had 1 year at College of Southern Idaho, or 2 years?
2 years.
2 years.
Right.
Okay, and so you opened a lot of possibilities there. But the city you lived in originally was almost 500,000 people.
That's true.
And so it's not a little town on the edge of nowhere. It's actually a fairly big city.
Right.
So you're really a city boy, even though grew up in a remote area.
Right.
So you came to St. Petersburg, and then you came over here. What was striking to you about being here in Idaho?
Okay, my first week was a challenge. My first 2 weeks, actually, before school started in Twin Falls, I didn't know what to do, and I thought like it was just going to be boring. And I was counting my days before I would leave. But as soon as school started, I just got into, I got busy with not only school, but all other activities that were there, and challenged myself to discover American people and American culture and so on. So I was focused on school so much that like the fact that the city was small, and honestly, like there are not too many things to do in Twin Falls. However, that never bothered me at that point. Mm-hmm.
Although I was going to say you're feeling like Twin Falls might be too boring. I think that a number of people who grew up in that area also think it and come to Boise for that reason. Your family, your father was a doctor, so
yeah,
was
he's a doctor.
In the United States, if that were true, it would mean you kind of come from a privileged background,
right.
And you had a lot of money. Is that the case there?
Well, we don't want to talk about universal healthcare here too much, but when healthcare is universal, which is the case in Russia, the doctors obviously are not paid that well, and it's not only run by the government, but also like the government is pretty much paying the physicians. So because of that, I don't have the I'm not coming from the privileged family, but I still like I have a lot of respect for my dad for what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. And probably your family puts a high value on education too.
Well, even in the Soviet times, when when we lived under communism, education has always been put a high value, and yeah, my parents have always emphasized the importance of it.
So now, how old are you?
I'm 21.
21. So you were born slightly before the end of the Soviet Empire.
That's true. Uh-huh.
So you actually experienced Russia, Soviet Union, Russia, in a time of a lot of turmoil.
Right.
What was that like? I mean, were those hard times for your family trying to make ends meet, or?
Yeah, those were really hard times for the family to make ends meet, as you just said. But I was so little, and I had never been exposed to like the abundance of everything that you, for example, have here. So because I have never lived in that other world, it didn't bother me too much. For my parents, sometimes it was hard to to get just basic food. Like they would have to stand in line for 3 hours to get maybe eggs or something as simple as oatmeal, but to them, as long as we would have food, that would be okay. And they never told me that they would have a problem. And as long as I wouldn't be hungry, that I never
Worried.
thought that it could have been the other way.
Yeah. So let's. We have some photos that you brought along of Russia, and maybe we could start with the beginning. Just look at some, and you can tell us a little bit about, so we get a flavor of what it's like. Now
Yeah, this is the city where I'm actually from. It's its name is Murmansk, and it's about 200 miles away from Norway. It gets really cold, and this is the way we drive about 7 months a year. Like the road is frozen, it's covered with ice. It's really surprising how here in the States sometimes they cancel school when it snows a lot, when it's cold. And it's just funny because it's the way we move around pretty much 6 months a year.
Okay, let's look at the next one.
Oh, it's just the forest. People are really keen on skiing, and cross-country skiing is a big deal. And
So this is outside. This is near your
Yeah,
hometown.
yeah, in my hometown, right?
Some more shots of the.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. So now this is that was kind of a hilly area near you.
Yeah, there are some mountains there, but they're not as tall as here. And this is the New Year celebration.
Okay.
For
And
the
that's someone
youth.
dressed as what?
Some
a
kind
duck
of
or something,
hero.
or-
I don't even know. I'm not
Yeah.
very good at
So
those things.
New Year's is a big celebration. Is this outside? It's inside.
It's the inside. It's
okay. Okay.
It's just the city at night,
Uh-huh.
and it's cold. It's 20 degrees below Celsius,
Wow.
below 0 Celsius.
Wow.
And this is the way people celebrate the New Year. It's 3 a.m. and people usually go outside and they all say Happy New Year, Happy New Year, and there is a lot of fireworks, obviously.
Just for the audience, if it's 20 below Celsius, it's more like 40 below here, isn't it?
Well, I guess it's when you get down to 20, it's almost like 20, 25 below Fahrenheit. I believe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite cold. People tend to drink outside a lot, and during the New Year, policemen can't do anything about it. But in Russia too now, it's illegal to have a drink open when you are outside. They're kind of following the path of what you have here. This is St. Petersburg. This is like the downtown area.
So this is where you were in school, and this is at what university did you study at?
I studied at the University of Telecommunications,
Okay.
so it had to do with telecommunications. And that church that you see in the very background, it's about 100 years old, but it was built at the exact spot where one of the Russian Tsars was assassinated in 1892, I believe. I went skiing, and it was really, really cold. My camera actually froze right after this shot. This is subway. It's in St. Petersburg. It's not as beautiful as in Moscow. In Moscow, it's almost like a masterpiece because Stalin was the one who initiated that process, and they really invested a lot of money. But then it's kind of more utilitarian in St. Petersburg. This is something that is just like made of ice.
Ice sculptures.
Ice sculptures. They like to do that. Sometimes they even build like huge palaces, and they make glasses out of ice. So it's kind of weird to drink your vodka out of a glass, a glass made of ice. This is a room in the university where I originally started, and you can see how it's like overall it's kind of poorly. It looks quite poorly in terms of like even the chairs and the board and everything.
It's sort of minimal.
Utilitarian.
Yeah.
So usually it's like students just come in and like there is no opportunity for the teacher to run the PowerPoint presentation, and like all they can do is just write with chalk on that board. So it's pretty boring to listen to the teacher in other way. This is how students are celebrating their like projects, final projects. you can see that as soon as they're done, they just throw them on the streets. They don't care about them anymore, and they start drinking champagne right away. This is my university back home, where I started. It's quite an old building.
Now, is this a canal or a river?
It's a river.
Uh-huh.
This is a movie that they were shooting about 2 years ago, and you will see some traditional outfit there. This movie is about one of the Russian emperors. It goes back to like 1700s, but I've never seen it, so I don't even know what it is exactly about.
Yeah, Petersburg still has a lot more of the kind of czarist tradition there.
Yeah, what's cool about Petersburg is because during the Soviet times, because in contrast to Moscow, it wasn't the capital, the Soviets were not able to destroy the architecture, and you can still feel like you are in those like 1800s when you're walking along the streets. It's still very strict, and the style has not been mixed up as much.
The Nevsky Prospect?
Yeah, the biggest street. And this is the way they advertise sometimes. Like they would put an old car on a street and they would write something on it. The car is worthless, but this is how people learn about local businesses. Yeah, this is Nevsky Avenue. It's the heart of the city. One of the problems with Petersburg, though, is because everything is so concentrated around that one street. Like if you go out on a weekend, usually you're very likely to run into people that you know. And in Moscow, you usually don't have that problem because it's all staggered, it's all spread out.
You don't want to run into people you know?
Well, you don't want to run into too many people that you know, because then you would have to waste too much time saying and talking. This is just it's the Bay of Finland, I believe. It freezes for the winter time, but you can see a dog swimming there in the back. And one of the problems here is that like it's not really a beach, as you can see, but people still go there because I guess it's close to their homes, and
it looks like she's walking kind of carefully.
Yeah, because like there are some maybe like glass bottles that have been broken, and she's afraid of hearing.
So this is then right across. This is near Petersburg.
It's actually in the city inside.
In the city and right
area.
across then from Finland.
Yes. You can see this old Soviet, what is it?
Anti-aircraft guns or
something. We used to scare the world. Actually, we still do. But yeah, it's one of the main cathedrals downtown.
Yeah, I've never been to Petersburg, but anybody who I've talked to says it's really a beautiful, beautiful city.
This is Red Square. When I come to Moscow, usually I try to make it to Red Square for like 15 minutes or something, just because it's the symbol. To me, Russia is Red Square. Like in terms of physical symbol of the country, this is where I feel like I'm. I have a sense of belongingness. So it's always neat to spend it.
So what's interesting, that because Russia is no longer red, and Red Square really symbolizes the communist regime. To what extent do you think that Russian pride is still kind of connected to the Soviet era?
Well, actually, Red Square in no way symbolizes the Soviet regime, because everything that you see there, it was built between 1500 and 1600s. The red, one of the reasons it's called red is because in Russian red also means beautiful. So in other words, it is also a beautiful square. But the Kremlin, originally it was white, and then it became red in like 1600s. And so red is not only because it's just like red, and the communists, the flag was red and everything, but what I'm saying is that the Red Square, it has been the symbol of the country before.
And the Kremlin too.
And the Kremlin too.
Although that wasn't the capital, it was still.
Right. So in other words, it really, to the Russians, it doesn't even have any kind of reminders of communism.
But there still is some pride about the
communism?
Power of that empire, isn't there?
People do have it, especially older people, and the younger people want Russia to become stronger and to kind of come back where we used to be, and this is one of the reasons the current regime has so much popularity. But to me, communism has always been something very negative, and the lack of freedom, the lack of being able to do what I want to do, is something that have always. This is the way I think of communism. Usually, I barely think of the good things that we had, even though we did have them. So I think it's the past page of our history, and we should not even try to like be proud of it. I don't
So
see
you're
it.
kind of a post-communist child.
I am definitely.
So now, do your parents feel the same way?
My parents do, but my grandparents don't. My grandparents enjoyed the lifestyle that they had in 1960s, 70s, 80s, and it was really hard for them to go through that transition. And many people have not been able to do that. They still miss those times, and they will never be satisfied with whatever we will have in the future.
Well, I think one of the things that's attractive to some of those people is the level of security you have. You knew you didn't have certain kinds of freedoms to travel and other things, but you did have, price controls on how much you had to pay for your apartment, and you had a steady income, and you had a steady job, and everything was fairly predictable. And I think a lot of people liked that.
That's very true.
Yeah. So now, you've been here in the United States now how many years?
4.
4 years. And you're going to graduate
in the spring.
in the spring. And would you consider going back and living in Russia? Or will you have to?
Yes, I will consider going back and living back home, but it's not my it's not on the top of my options, I would say. But one of the things about like being away from home for 4 years is that you kind of start missing your culture a little bit sometimes, right. And it's. You do understand that if you go back, you will definitely lose quite a bit of opportunities in terms of what you can do, but on the other side, you will gain something else, something that you have been missing for a long time. But the way my country is headed right now, and with me being interested in diplomacy and public policy, I don't see myself working for the current government. I can't even see myself working for the Russian Foreign Service, because if I work for the Foreign Service, I have to follow the line that the government, the president, basically the Kremlin tells me to follow, and I'm very anti-Putin. Hopefully, the KGB agents are not watching us right now. But
what is it in particular that, because I see it from the outside, I've got a lot of reservations about him. But what from your point of view, what is it about Putin that's difficult for you to like? His suppression of the opposition, the control of the media, and pretty much trying to control the minds of the people. Because I was surprised. I was watching the news like a week ago or something, and I saw one old Russian lady explaining why she wants to vote for him and why she thinks she's good. And her argument is that, well, look, he cares about the army, the economy, the old people, the young people, the students, everything. And then the way she would prove her argument, she would say, I just watched TV like 5 minutes ago. This is what they told, They told
I'm
me.
like, hello. Yeah. It's all controlled. I mean, all the TV channels are, even if they are not controlled by the government, they try to not to give much space to the opposition leaders. Yeah. And
well, I understand that the economy's gotten a little bit better, and people like that, and things are a little more stable than they were, and people like that.
Well, honestly, the richest people, they do feel that they're doing much better and they are making more and more money. But when it comes down to the lower classes, even though they might be making 50% more compared to what they were making 3 or 4 years ago, but with the inflation rate at about 12%, and it takes that away. It's part of it, but also the people do not understand that if they have had the more efficient government, the level of their quality of life would have been growing so much faster. And one of the main reasons for the current growth is, of course, oil prices, with Russia exporting so much oil with $97 a barrel. The
really
government
helps.
doesn't have to do anything,
Right.
and it's a problem.
Yeah, yeah. So, so can you stay here longer? Is there is that possible?
No. I mean, as soon as I'm done with school, I need to do something else, and I need to move on.
Can you go to graduate school? Is that a possibility? Or?
Yeah, I'm considering going to graduate school, but I'm not sure where I would choose to go to graduate school yet.
So, in terms of what do you miss most about Russia then? Speaking the language? Do you get a chance to speak it here?
Sometimes I do, but it's quite rare. Because even with some of my Russian-speaking friends, we speak English, because now we got to the point where it's just so much easier. What I miss, probably speaking to the people that I don't know in Russian, because it makes you speak the language differently. Because when I'm around people that I know, like, I don't really care, and I mix my words all the time, English and Russian and all that. But when you are around some new people, and when you have to like present a good quality of the language, this is something that I miss. Other than that, honestly, I
don't miss the food, or
I don't miss the food. I like food here. I cook Russian food when I want to. It's not a problem. I don't know. There used to be much more things. I mean, my first year, I used to miss a lot of things, but I got to the point now when because of the way it happens, like sometimes you miss something, but then you go back, you realize, well, it's not that big of a deal for you. And because of me making those trips quite regularly, quite frequently, I came to the point where I realized that for me, there are not too many things that I miss there.
So how often do you get back?
Well, it used to be at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. Last time I went home was January.
So how do you get? Do you fly east or west to get?
I fly east. I fly over the Atlantic. I'm from western part of Russia. My friends who are from eastern part of Russia, sometimes they fly to Japan, North Korea. No, not North Korea, of course, but like Mongolia or something. Yeah.
So, you've been here now in the United States 4 years, and there's, I think in expatriate life, there's kind of ups and downs. There's a period where you miss it a lot, and then there's a period where you don't miss it so much. And then have you reached the period where you're kind of afraid to go back, where you feel like maybe you're too Americanized and that you couldn't fit back in?
It's a very, very good question. I reached that point about maybe a year ago. Culturally, I'm so used to like having the freedom to express myself, and not trying to be very modest, because Russians tend to like not to speak out loudly for themselves, and it's just the way people are interacting. Like even me smiling, like I like smiling, and usually the first day in Moscow is an embarrassment. But it's also a dangerous day, because first of all, when I smile to the people, they think that I mean something, but I'm just smiling for no reason, right? So they think I'm like, I don't know, weird or something. But
crazy or?
Yeah. Also, when crossing the streets, like I'm expecting the car to stop to let me go, and no, they don't stop there. They just go over here. Yeah. I have a feeling that. Even when during those times when I'm going back, like I'm seeking the interaction with the people who have gone through similar experiences, because when you're talking to, when you're somewhere like in that small or big Russian city, when you're talking to someone who doesn't have maybe the background to understand you, to understand where you're coming from, then it's quite hard to connect with the people. So there is plenty of people who I can make my friends, but it requires some time, and usually at least 2 months it's quite rough when you kind of feel separated from the society.
We only have a couple more minutes. here in the United States, is there anything that you still have trouble with that surprised you, or that you just feel is a little bit weird about this society?
Weird about the society. Well, there are a lot of things.
A lot
I
of weird
guess.
things?
I don't think about them too much, but
If you could change something about American society, what would it be?
it's a very good question. Probably, if people could maybe spend a little bit less time watching TV and talking about movies, and talk a little bit more about what is kind of on their minds, or just for some reason I like talking to Americans in general, because it's quite easy. You can always find a lot of things to talk about, but there are times when you really feel that their conversations are kind of dominated by the pop culture, or things that they see on TV, or even politics.
Right.
A lot of conversations about politics here, so if I were to change something, I would probably, I wish Americans would watch a little bit less TV and spend a little bit more time maybe exercising and just enjoying the conversations, not only inside of their family, because it's a very family-based culture, but also maybe have a broader spectrum of people that they interact on a regular basis.
Do you think that the commitment to kind of culture with a capital C is deeper in Russia? That is, a commitment to, let's say, literature and music and the fine arts. Is that deeper there or not than here? I mean, are more people?
When we are talking about the current, the generation that is growing up right now, no, it's not.
No.
It's actually deeper here.
No.
I can say it with 100% certainty. Because when we have that society in transition, it's the youth there doesn't have that deep of understanding of the importance of things.
So would you say that the Russian youth are pretty much into sort of international or American-based pop culture there?
Yeah, just as much as here, even worse sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have to wind up. Is there anything that we haven't covered? You got 30 seconds. Anything else you'd like to that we didn't touch on that strikes you?
Strikes me.
Any final words you'd like to leave to the American audience?
Watch TV. It's very good to hear people like me.
All right, good. Okay, we want to thank you for joining us today, Alexei, and thank you in the audience for tuning in and watching another Conversations. And we'll be back next week, and we hope you join us.